Utah looks like open desert from the highway. Red rock canyons, salt flats stretching to the horizon, small towns where everybody waves. It feels like the kind of place where nothing's hidden. Then, starting in the 1940s, the United States government began testing nerve agents, launching missiles into Mexico and burying radioactive waste across the state. And most of it is still out there, fenced off, guarded, and completely forbidden. These are 10 places in Utah you are not allowed to visit. Number 1, the Clive Disposal Facility. 80 miles west of Salt Lake City, in a stretch of desert so empty there isn't another building for 20 miles, sits one of the most significant radioactive waste dumps in the country. The Clive Disposal Facility covers roughly 1 square mile of Utah's West Desert, and what's buried beneath it will stay dangerous for longer than human civilization has existed. The site accepts depleted uranium, a material that doesn't get safer with time. It actually becomes more radioactive as it decays. As of 2015, 49,000 tons of it had already been buried here, and the federal government is evaluating this site for permanent disposal of its entire depleted uranium stockpile, roughly 250,000 metric tons. Most of the radioactive waste from decommissioning the San Onofre nuclear generating station in California is being shipped here by rail and truck. In 2020, one of those shipments became the heaviest load ever hauled by road in Nevada history. Toole County has zoned the entire area as a hazardous industrial district. No homes will ever be built anywhere near this place. Number 2, the Green River Launch Complex. During the Cold War, the U.S. military built a launch facility near the small town of Green River to test re-entry vehicles for the nation's ballistic missile program. From 1964 to 1975, 244 missiles were fired from this site, reaching altitudes of roughly 175 miles before slamming into targets at White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico. On July 11, 1970, an Athena missile launched in the middle of the night veered off course and rocketed deep into Mexico near the city of Durango. The nose cone carried 2 containers of cobalt-57, a radioactive isotope. Nobody knew where it hit. It took weeks of searching to find the crash site, and 60 drums of radioactive soil had to be dug up and hauled back across the border. The Mexican government reminded Washington that a Pershing missile had already overshot into their territory 3 years earlier. Today, the launch complex sits abandoned. Concrete bunkers, rusting rail tracks, and underground conduit boxes are still out there, slowly being swallowed by sand. Number 3, the Topaz internment camp. 15 miles west of Delta, Utah, the United States government held over 8,000 Japanese Americans at a single time during the World War II. More than 11,000 individuals passed through the camp across its 3 years of operation. 65% were American citizens born on American soil. None were ever charged with a crime. Families lived in uninsulated barracks of plywood and tar paper. Workers earned between $14 and $19 a month. On April 11, 1943, a 63-year-old internee named James Wakasa was shot and killed by a guard while walking his dog near the perimeter fence. His body was found several feet inside it. The guard was found not guilty. If you're wondering how that's even possible, so is everyone else. Over 100 young men from Topaz volunteered for the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, which became one of the most decorated units in U.S. military history. They fought for a country that had locked up their families. The site is a National Historic Landmark now. You can visit parts of it, but sections are fenced and strictly protected for preservation. Number 4, Wendover Airfield. On the Utah-Nevada border sits the airfield where the United States rehearsed the end of World War II. In September of 1944, Colonel Paul Tibbets handpicked this remote desert base to train the 509th Composite Group, the unit that would drop the atomic bombs on Japan. Only Tibbets knew the full mission. 400 FBI agents lived on base to keep it that way. Phone calls were tapped. Letters were read. Anyone who talked was reportedly shipped to Alaska. The crews practiced with pumpkin bombs, dummy weapons matched to the exact size and weight of Fat Man. Each bombardier completed at least 50 practice drops before Tibbets declared them combat ready. On August 6, 1945, the Enola Gay dropped Little Boy on Hiroshima. An estimated 70,000 to 80,000 people died immediately. The hangar that housed the Enola Gay still stands. Bomb loading pits are still visible on the tarmac. Parts of the base operate as a museum, but large sections remain fiercely restricted and deteriorating in the dry desert air. Number 5. Nutty Putty Cave. Nutty Putty Cave in Utah County wasn't a military installation or a government secret. It was a popular caving destination that attracted over 5,000 visitors a year. Its tightest passages had names like the Helmet Eater and the Birth Canal. On November 24, 2009, 26-year-old John Edward Jones entered the cave with his brother Josh and 9 other friends and family members. He took a wrong turn into an unmapped passage and went headfirst down a 70-degree incline, wedging himself upside down in a fissure roughly 10 inches wide. Every time he inhaled, he slid further. 137 rescuers worked for over 27 hours. At one point, a rigging system lifted Jones enough for him to make eye contact with rescuers and smile. Then an anchor failed. He slid back down. Jones was pronounced dead from cardiac arrest just before midnight. His family agreed to leave his body in place. The passage was collapsed and sealed, and every entrance was filled with concrete. Nutty Putty Cave is now his permanent grave. Number 6. Dugway Proving Ground. 85 miles southwest of Salt Lake City, the U.S. Army operates a weapons testing facility the size of Rhode Island. 801,000 acres where the military has tested biological and chemical weapons since 1942. Popular mechanics called it the new Area 51. This decision seemed small at the time. It wasn't. On March 13, 1968, an F-4 Phantom flew a VX nerve agent dispersal mission over Dugway. A spray nozzle malfunctioned and kept leaking as the jet climbed. The spray target sat roughly 27 miles from Skull Valley, and winds carried residual agent northeast into the valley's grazing land. Within days, approximately 6,000 sheep were dead. Another 600 had to be slaughtered. The Army denied any testing had occurred. Its own classified report didn't confirm fault until 1978, and that report wasn't made public until 1998. And somehow, it gets worse still. In 2011, a vial of VX nerve agent went missing on base. Dugway locked down completely. 1,200 people were trapped overnight until the vial was recovered the next day. Officials called it a mislabeling problem. If you're finding this helpful, hit subscribe. I cover forbidden and restricted locations across the United States every week. Number 7. The Utah Test and Training Range. The UTTR is the largest contiguous block of overland supersonic authorized restricted airspace in the lower 48 states. 19,000 square miles of sky where nobody flies unless the military says so. This is the only facility in the country where explosives exceeding 10 kilotons can be detonated. On September 8, 2004, NASA's Genesis spacecraft returned to Earth carrying solar wind particles collected over 2 years in space. The capsule was supposed to deploy a parachute over the UTTR so that Hollywood stunt pilots and helicopters could snag it mid-air. The parachute never opened. An accelerometer inside had been installed backwards. The capsule slammed into the Utah desert at 193 miles per hour. Solar wind collector wafers made of sapphire, silicon, gold, and diamond shattered into over 10,000 pieces. Remarkably, scientists salvaged most of the material in a clean room at nearby Dugway Proving Ground. Number 8. The NSA Utah Data Center. In Bluffdale, between Utah Lake and the Great Salt Lake, The National Security Agency built a $1.5 billion data storage facility that became a national symbol of government surveillance. The NSA originally named it the Massive Data Repository. They changed it to Mission Data Repository because the first name was, in their own assessment, too creepy. That detail comes directly from Edward Snowden. Former NSA analyst William Binney has said the center can process virtually all forms of communication, from private emails and cell phone calls to internet searches and bookstore purchases. Before it even opened, it suffered 10 electrical meltdowns in 13 months, destroying hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment. The entire complex is heavily guarded and completely off limits to the public. Number 9. Skinwalker Ranch. 512 acres in the Uinta Basin, bordering the Ute Indian Reservation. The Ute people have been forbidden by tribal elders to go near this property for at least 15 generations. They say it sits on the path of the Skinwalker, a malevolent, shape-shifting figure from Navajo tradition. The Sherman family bought the ranch in 1994 and sold it roughly 2 years later for $200,000 after reporting cattle mutilations, unidentified aerial objects, and events they couldn't explain. Las Vegas billionaire Robert Bigelow purchased it and ran research on the property through his National Institute for Discovery Science. In 2008, a $22 million classified program called AAWSAP was funded through the Defense Intelligence Agency with congressional backing. The program studied UAPs and anomalous phenomena broadly, with Skinwalker Ranch as a central research site. The program's existence was confirmed by the New York Times in December of 2017. Today, all roads to the ranch are blocked. The perimeter is lined with barbed wire and 64 cameras running around the clock. The property sits under restricted airspace, and trespassers have been prosecuted, which, looking back, raises a fair question about what exactly they're still monitoring out there. Number 10. The Granite Mountain Records Vault. 1 mile up Little Cottonwood Canyon in the Wasatch Range, behind doors weighing between 9 and 14 tons, sits the largest collection of genealogical records on Earth. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints excavated 6 chambers 600 feet into solid granite between 1958 and 1963. Each vault is 190 feet long, 25 feet wide, and 25 feet high. Inside, 2.4 million rolls of microfilm and billions of images of records from more than 100 countries, documenting an estimated 12 billion deceased individuals. The collection is roughly 32 times the size of the U.S. Library of Congress. Those entrance doors were built to withstand a nuclear blast. The mountain provides up to 700 feet of solid quartz monzonite rock overhead. Inside, a 33,000-gallon reservoir of natural spring water, self-contained power, and independent climate control keep everything preserved. When the vault opened in 1963, the public was briefly invited for tours. That was the last time. The church describes it as not secret, but secure. In 2019, someone created a Facebook event called Storm the Church Vault. They Can't Stop All of Us. Over 1,000 people expressed interest. Nobody showed up. Utah doesn't advertise what it's hiding. No state does. Nerve agent proving grounds, nuclear bomb rehearsal sites, surveillance data centers, sealed caves, and a vault buried under 700 feet of granite. The real question isn't why these places are forbidden. It's what else is out there that hasn't made the list yet.